So I'll be talking about radiological assessment of shoulder. So I'll be just focusing on two modalities, that's X-rays and MRIs, though we have CT and ultrasound, which ultrasound is coming up in a big way for shoulder. So talking about X-rays for shoulder pathologies. Most of the shoulder pathologies we're dealing with are actually soft tissue pathologies, and X-rays is an indirect way of looking at those soft tissue pathologies. So way back in 1962, British Journal of Radiology, there was a paper said that shoulder is the forgotten joint. Why it's a forgotten joint? Because we don't order our X-rays properly for this, and we very commonly miss some subtle hints which we can find about the pathology on the X-rays. So there's this famous rule of two which we use for all the X-rays. So if you are doing only one X-rays, one view is one view, two view. So you have to have always have two orthogonal X-rays, two X-rays in perpendicular planes, but we hardly ever do that for shoulder. So we should stop that step motherly or brotherly treatment to shoulder and always have two views always. So first view, simple plain AP view, or better would be a true AP view. So my scapula is about 30 degrees to the normal perpendicular plane. So to get a true AP view, you have to just make it oblique so that it is parallel to your X-ray sheet, okay, and perpendicular to the X-ray beam. So that gives you a true AP view, and you can see that you will get a proper distinction between your humeral head and the glenoid, and this is a normal. Does this work? Do we have a better pointer? So this is a AP view, this is a true AP or a Grashe view. Along with the AP view, you need to have one lateral view. You have various options for a lateral view. You can have the standard axillary view, but in trauma situations, you may not be able to get a proper axillary view. So you can either have a scapular lateral view or what we call as a Y view. So it's exactly perpendicular to your true AP view. So true AP view is going like this. This would be, that is perpendicular to your scapula. This would be parallel to your scapula. So you'll give a Y view. You can see this is another form of a lateral view. Or you can have a Valpio lateral view. So this is usually used for a trauma situation where you cannot abduct. So either a Y view or axillary view or a Valpio view. So what are we looking at? What X-rays can tell us, subtle hints which the X-rays can tell us. So in impingement, we usually have 4 or 5 pathologies which you are looking for in the shoulder. You have impingement, you have cuff tears, you have instabilities, you have arthritis. These are 4 or 5 situations which you are trying to diagnose. So what can X-rays tell us? So in impingement, you will have the dorsal sign, the eyebrow sign. So sclerosis on the undersurface of the acromion, sclerosis of the GT, you may have some calcific tendinitis. These are signs which you can catch in the X-rays. In instability, you may find maybe signs of a glenoid or bony Bankart. You may find a Hill-Sachs, or you may find that there is flattening of the glenoid anterior margin, which you telling that there is some glenoid bone loss. All are some signs that you need further investigation. You're not basing your management on X-rays, but maybe you need further investigation. For instability, you will require a CT and MRI to plan your case. Cuff tear, long-standing cuff tear, you'll have a decreased acromiohumeral interval, should be more than 6 mm in a normal individual. So if that is decreased, it's a sign that there's a cuff tear, because of that there's proximal migration. Again, this Gothic arch or this arch would be gone. So there's no Gothic arch which is continuous. Okay, again sign of proximal migration of the humeral head, which can give you idea that there's cuff tear, so needs further imaging. Or you can have signs of cuff tear arthritis. You're going to go through this Hamada classification, and you can classify what grade of arthritis or cuff tear arthropathy it is, depending upon the X-ray sign. Usually we do a AP view and diagnose, do the Hamada classification on this. So in today's practice, I don't do any special views. These are the views I do. Normal AP or true AP view and any form of a lateral view. Sometimes I do get a Zanka's view for your AC joint, but I don't use any special views in my clinical practice. I think with the advent of CT, MRI, most of these are obsolete. You're not going to make your management or plan your management on these X-rays, so I don't waste the patient's money or time on those special views. I just do get these X-rays into orthogonal planes, and that's it, and then I move on to the further investigation. Shoulder MRI, one of your best friends for planning your shoulder cases or making your diagnosis. For all of these diagnoses, you need to get your MRIs done for cuff tears and for your special cuff tear and instability patients. But when not to get MRIs to make your diagnosis. So it's to confirm your diagnosis. You have already done your history, your clinical examination, already done what Dr. Tirath just said. You have some DD in your mind, and MRIs to confirm that differential diagnosis. If you don't have a differential diagnosis in mind, don't order MRI. Put the patient on some conservative management, give him symptomatic treatment, call him back after maybe 2-3 weeks. Again, do your clinical examination, get us idea of what the patient is suffering from, and then get MRI. If you get MRI done, if you don't have a differential diagnosis in mind, you will get lost. There will be a plethora of findings on the MRI, subacromial bursitis, slab tear, small partial thickness cuff tear, supraspinatus tendinitis. You don't know where the pain is coming from, and you'll get lost. So all the benefits of MRI would be out. So have a differential diagnosis in mind, get the MRI done. So how it's done, 3 planes, cornal, it's not proper cornal, it's an angled corner, it's perpendicular to your supraspinatus fibers, angle sagittal parallel to your supraspinatus fibers, and an axial plane. And normal slice thickness is about 3 mm. So ideally you should have all 3 planes, T1, T2 and fat suppressed, but usually don't get that. What you need is at least these 5, cornal, T1, fat suppressed, axial T2 and sagittal T1 and fat suppressed. This is the bare minimum. Most of us don't get this done. Sagittal T1, I think this is the most important, one of the most important things you need to get done for you, especially for your cuff tears. So please ask your radiologist, do get me a sagittal T1. So just talking about what is T1, I won't go into radiologist words. So this is what looks like T1. The muscle is dark grayish, the marrow is whitish. You always have a fat here. Compare this to a T2. So the muscle becomes light gray and the marrow becomes blackish. So this is T1, T2. So T1 is for your anatomy. This will tell you about some pathology. It's a T2 weighted image, but best friend is a fat suppressed. Look, there is no subcutaneous fat. Fat is black here. In the T1 and T2, fat was still white. In fat suppressed, only thing white is inflammation or pathology. So you're looking at all your inflammations, all your tears here in a fat suppressed image. So look at the subcutaneous fat. If it's great, that's a fat suppressed image. So axial sections, you're going from top to down. So going from acromion to down up to the lower level of glenoid. So main problem in MRI is how to orient yourself. If you orient yourself, which section is this, where are you going from top to down, or from medial to lateral, what is anterior, what is posterior, you'll be able to diagnose. So your lighthouse, as in open surgery in shoulder, is your coracoid. Look for coracoid in all sections. Coracoid is a superior and anterior section. If you are able to find where is the coracoid, you'll not be lost. So this is the topmost section, you can see the AC joint. Now try and see what part is. So you can see this is clavicle, this is acromion, so this would be anterior. You can go down and look for coracoid. So coracoid is coming here. So this is again tells you that this is anterior, this is posterior. This will help you orient yourself. So this is the anterior part of glenoid, this posterior part of glenoid. So this orients yourself. Always look for coracoid in any section in MRI to help you orient yourself. So in axial sections, what are the things you are looking for? So what you are looking for is your subscapularis. So three things you will be looking for. Subscapularis, along with your biceps tendon in the axial section, you will be looking at the glenoid labrum. And if there is any Hill-Sachs lesion, these are the three things you have to look for in an axial MRI. So where would be my subscapularis? Subscapularis will come anteriorly just below the coracoid. So as I go down, this is my subscap which is coming. So it will go from anterior to my glenoid and go and attach onto the lesser tuberosity. So here this will be lesser tuberosity, greater tuberosity. This is the biceps groove in between. This is the biceps tendon. So you have to look at continuity of the subscapularis going from the scapula up to the LT. If there is any discontinuity, there is a slap tear or there is a subscapularis tear. And biceps may be dislocated. Usually it's dislocated when there is a subscapularis tear. You can see some bicipital tendinitis also. You can diagnose in this axial section. Then you're looking at labrum. The anterior labrum and the posterior labrum, these should be very firmly attached to your glenoid margin. There should not be any gap between the labrum, the anterior, the posterior. Why I say this is anterior? Because here was the coracoid, this is my subscap, this is biceps, all indicative of the anterior part. So anterior labrum. So when you are looking for an anterior labral tear, it's a Bankart tear. It's an antero-inferior lesion. Remember that. So how do you say it's antero-inferior? You should not see coracoid. Coracoid is superior. Okay, if you see coracoid and see something missing, some labrum missing or labrum not firmly attached, that is not a Bankart tear. That's very superior, looking at 2 o'clock. So Bankart tear would be 3 o'clock and below. So when you're not seeing the coracoid and see a gap between the anterior labrum and the glenoid, that's your Bankart tear. And the third thing you're looking for is Hill-Sachs. Hill-Sachs is superior, postero-superior lesion. So it has to be at the level of coracoid. So if you see coracoid anteriorly and see some flattening or some indentation in the posterior part of the humeral head, that's your Hill-Sachs lesion. Don't diagnose Hill-Sachs lesion at 5 o'clock. So there will be one thing. If you're seeing a Bankart tear, you should not be seeing Hill-Sachs at the same level. Superiorly, you will see a Hill-Sachs. Inferiorly, you will see a Bankart. So these are the things you need to see in an axial section. So just repeating, Hill-Sachs, subscapularis tendon with biceps, and Bankart tear. And there is one thing called physiological posterolateral flattening of humeral head. As you go down, your humeral head flattens posterolaterally. So that you may mistaken for Hill-Sachs, that's physiological. So again, remember, Hill-Sachs is at or above the level of coracoid, not below. So coming to coronal sections are easy. It's almost like looking at a plain AP X-ray film. What are we looking for? Again, look for coracoid to orient yourself. So if you're seeing the coracoid, that's your anterior section. Coronal section is going for anterior, posterior. So if you're seeing coracoid, it's the anterior section. So anteriorly coracoid, what you want to see in axial coronal sections would be your rotator cuff tendon, tears, and maybe some subacromial bursitis, subacromial edema, slap lesion. These would be the most common things you'll be looking for in a coronal section. So coracoid, so below the coracoid would be subscapularis muscle. As you go posteriorly, you will start to see the supraspinatus. So supraspinatus coming from the scapula, going and attaching onto the GT. So it's easy to see, easy to get oriented here. So how do you know when it's supraspinatus and when it's infraspinatus? So usually the supraspinatus has a footprint for about 10 to 12 mm. So each slice, you remember, was 3 mm. So when you start seeing full vision of supraspinatus going from the scapula up to the GT, start counting from there. The first 3 or 4 anterior sections would be supraspinatus. So supra, this is supra, going posteriorly, supra, supra, supra. 4 sections, supra, the full view from your scapula to the GT. Next would be start coming infra. The posterior part would be infra, anterior part would be supra. And if there is a discontinuity in the tendon, that's your rotator cuff tears. Okay, and sometimes you may also be able to visualize the biceps, the slap tears here. So there's some gap between the biceps anchor and the glenoid, the slap tear. So what you want to diagnose here is your rotator cuff tears, the supraspinatus and infraspinatus tears, and a slap tear. Or if there's some edema above your cuff, that's your subacromial bursitis. Okay, the coronal section is done. Sagittal section, again very, very important, especially for cuff tear patients. This is what a sagittal section looks like. Again, orient yourself. Look, where is the coracoid? So that becomes anterior, that becomes posterior. Okay, and if you're seeing glenoid, scapula, that's the medial section, so you're moving from medial to lateral. Okay, so this is what you want to see. You want to look for atrophy of the rotator cuff. So this is spine of scapula. So above the spine would be supraspinatus, here would be infraspinatus, here would be teres, here would be your subscapularis. In cases of long-standing cuff tears, you'll see some fatty infiltration here. So we want to see that high grade of fatty infiltration would be a poor prognostic sign for a cuff repair. Okay, and another thing you want to see is again continuity of the tendon of the rotator cuff. You can see the whole rotator cuff coming from anterior to posterior in this section, in the lateral most section. If there's a cuff tear, there will be discontinuity in this cuff. Like this cuff should cover the humeral head in the entirety. So you want to see both the section, cuff tear in the sagittal section and in the coronal section, so that you can correlate. If your cuff tear is seen in both the sections, you are sure that the cuff tear is there. So this muscle, cuff atrophy, supraspinatus tears. Yeah, you may see some AC joint arthritis or edema here in this sagittal view also. So there are some normal variants. We will not talk about this. Let's talk about how the lesions look like. So Bankhart's lesion. So your anterior labrum, how I say anterior, because biceps and the subscapular is going there. So labrum is detached from the glenoid. So that is your Bankhart's lesion. It would be seen in the inferior sections, not at the level of coracoid, below the level of coracoid. Okay. ALPSA, your anterior labroperiosteal sleeve lesion. It's just a variant of Bankart. So you don't see labrum here. Okay. Perthes is an undisplaced Bankart's, and Hagel, I don't think going into this. So again, bony lesion should be at or above the level of coracoid, posterolateral flattening at the level of coracoid. Okay. Fat suppressed image, there is no anterior labrum, so, or a detached anterior labrum. Okay, so a Bankhart's tear. This is how a Hill-Sachs would look like at the level of coracoid, posteriorly indentation in the humeral head. Okay. So anterior, this is a bony Bankhart's here. So anterior labrum, because biceps is here, this is the anterior part, anterior labral tom along with some bone loss. Anterior labrum is avulsed from your glenoid. Cuff, so in coronal sections, fat suppressed image, this is no fat, you can see subcutaneous. This is your rotator cuff going up till here, there's a gap here. It's not going up to the GT, into the fat suppressed image. Same thing you are seeing in the sagittal section. You can see some cuff here, some cuff tissue here. This part is missing. So that is your supraspinatus tear, because the superior part of your cuff is missing. So that's your supraspinatus tear, and you can see, you can tell this is the amount of retraction which is there. Okay. So again, same cuff tear, continuous only up till here. This part is missing. And look for fatty infiltration. You should know about Gutlier classification, and according to Gutlier classification, you should be able to identify or tell how much amount of fatty infiltration or fatty atrophy is there. Okay, again, a cuff tear patients, cuff tear is missing here, fatty infiltration. Massive cuff tears, So cuff is retracted beyond your glenoid. The cuff is lying here. So this is a bald head. So there's no cuff tissue here. There's no cuff tissue here. Okay, you can see anteriorly. The subscapular is nothing here. Okay. So I think we'll skip this and anything. So learn how to diagnose or read a MRI. Otherwise, it will be something like this. You cannot rely on a radiologist, however good friend or girlfriend or boyfriend he may be, because this other will be clinical correlation. So you can't depend. If you're reading the report and not looking at the films yourself, you'll be lost. You have the advantage of having the patient to yourself. You have seen the patient, you already have a differential diagnosis in mind, and you're confirming that on the MRI. So learn to read the MRI yourself. I don't ever read the reports. Reports are for insurance purposes. Okay? It's not for you. It's for the patient to read, for the insurance guys to confirm your surgery, your payment for the surgery, not for you. Learn to read the MRIs yourself. Thank you. Do we have? Sarthak, if we have time, we can show some MRIs, or it's time?
No, I think we have time is done. Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. Harpreet. So the take-home message is, don't believe the MRI, the radiologist. Always try to learn it by yourself. And then, the best thing, there is one thing which I was, when I was a student, one of my teacher told me, you can only see what you know, like what you have learned. So you need to, in MRI, whenever you go for MRI, before that X-rays and also is equally important. And what is important more than that is a clinical examination. If your clinical examination, the supraspinatus tear, all the drop pump sign, or the subclassic empty can test, everything positive, or internal impingement are positive, then you can just correlate with the MRI. And as he very correctly mentioned, MRI is for the insurance staff and the patient to believe your talk. It is not for us. Because if you are treating a patient by just seeing the MRI, you are going to miss many of his functional activities. Because when you are going to treat a patient, there are three things. One is the functional activity, what is the functional restriction the patient is having. Second is, what is the pathology we are seeing, which we have to treat it. And third is, what is this demand. So if you see the thing, you don't talk to your patient properly, the demand and the functional activities, you won't be able to clear it out. Okay?
Sir, one question to
Yeah, thank you. Please.
It is a very nice talk. So, would you do a routine CT screening maybe for an MRI, maybe in instability cases, just to assess the bone loss? Do you do it routinely or?
So, I usually get a proper CT scan done with a 3D reconstruction if I am suspecting a bone loss, depending on my X-ray MRI findings. So, I don't do a screening because I want to have a 3D reconstruction in an end-phase view. So it would not be possible in just screening. So I do, if I am suspecting, on basis of my clinical exam and maybe MR X-ray findings, CT is then the third investigation. I don't do a routine screening.
Okay, thank you.